Hello and welcome to the home of the Ghost Owl, and we're back to wrap up now the Warhammer The Old World main rulebook. The last section is looking at magic items, so we're going to be going through those. First up are the magic weapons, so let's take a look and see what we've got for those. Now, magic weapons, they cannot be used alongside an additional hand weapon, magical or mundane, to gain an extra attack. A character using a magic weapon cannot choose to use a mundane weapon that it is also carrying. If a character has more than one magic weapon, you must choose which one to use during the choose and fight combat subphase. And if a character has more than one magic missile weapon, you must choose which one they will use when they are chosen to shoot. So, fairly straightforward clarifications around choosing magic weapons. So, let's start then. So, Ogre Blade, these are pretty much its range combat, strength +2, AP -2. So, straight away, you're looking at a pretty decent improvement to combat stats here. Now, special rules, Armor Bane, so on those 6s to wound, you're getting an AP of -3. It has magical attacks and multiple wounds D3. Now, the flip side to that is this is going to be a very expensive magic weapon. So this is a sort of weapon that you're going to put on your army general if you're making him a combat lord. I would really only recommend putting such an expensive magic item on a lord like that. You know, you're going to use this. This is going to have to be your army general, most likely, who you are committed to using. You're not going to keep him back. You're not going to keep him safe. This is a guy you're going to throw into the thick of combat. You know, maybe he's mounted on a big monster. Maybe he's fully tooled up and in a ultra tough infantry unit or something like that. But you know, if you look at what he's got there, yes, he's going to be great at taking down models that have pretty good armor with that AP2 and Armor Bane. In reality, the +2 strength and the multiple wounds D3, you really want him to be going after monsters, monstrous infantry, characters, that sort of thing, if you're using this weapon. So in my mind, I think the best use, if I was going to take the Ogre Blade, I mean, you know, you can use it in multiple situations, no doubt. But the best use of this would be to put it on a character that's on a large monster that can most likely fly, where you can really pick and choose where you want this guy to go. And you've got good movement, so you can get the charge, get that extra initiative, make sure you're attacking first, and make the most of that additional strength and those multiple wounds. And it's really the multiple wounds that you want to try and capitalize on, because using this against one wound models is really throwing away a lot of the points value of this weapon. Okay, next up, Sword of Battle, strength +1, AP -1, Armor Bane, it gets an extra attack and magical attacks. So kind of a bit of a flip side to the one above. Again, still fairly expensive as magic weapons go. You know, we're pretty much starting at the most expensive and working our way through to the least expensive. The strength +1, AP -1, pretty nice for your typical sort of elven human lords that don't generally have a really good base strength. The Armor Bane, of course, is nice, but it's the extra attacks +1, which kind of tells me that this is best used. You know, there's no multiple wounds here. This is best used on a character, a combat character that is going to be on foot in an infantry unit, maybe in a cavalry unit as well. Would have value, but definitely in a unit going after other units. You're trying to get the most out of those extra attacks with each attack where the opponent doesn't save it, meaning that it's a model dead, and you're really here going after numbers of models killed, and without that multiple wounds, you're going after one wound models. The AP -1 means that, you know, you got to really think about the infantry you're going after, going after like ultra heavy infantry, that have shields as well, how much value you're going to be getting from it. Whereas if you're going after you just sort of your standard heavy infantry or even lightly armored infantry, this lord would really do some good damage. So yeah, I think for me this has got to be a combat character in a unit going after not the toughest infantry out there, but you're really just trying to generate number of attacks. Okay, next up, Duelist Blades. So strength is as a user, AP -1. You get +2 extra attacks, but it does require 2 hands. So the +2 extra attacks is nice. Requires 2 hands, okay, so you can't use a shield or anything like that. Well, not necessarily means you're going to be using a shield. There are other ways to survive. So I see Duelist Blades as similar to the one above, but even worse at dealing with the heavy armor. So again, maybe quite good in a again in an infantry unit on a character going after enemy line infantry and really just trying to do as many attacks as possible, remove models, stop being attacked back. Ideally, you're putting this on a character that has pretty good initiative, because what you really want him to do is attack first, because what all those extra attacks are going to do is remove the models and means you're not going to get attacked back, or the unit he's in is not going to get attacked back that much. So Duelist Blades, the extra attacks, they're pretty nice. Strength could be an issue. It'd be interesting, like if he was called into a challenge, if you're going to be dealing with anyone that's got high toughness, you're gonna struggle. But I think even enemy characters going to have to watch out for that. +2 attacks is pretty nice. And add that to maybe other items that you might take. To boost, there are other ways to boost other stats as well. So Duelist Blades could be an interesting one with those extra attacks. Okay. Oh, no, Dragon Slaying Sword. Dragon Slaying Sword there. So combat, strength as a user, AP is 0. Special rules, magical attacks, and monster slayer. So you're really going after monsters with this one. Overall, I don't like it. All the other weapons we've seen so far, they're you can attack anything with it. Yes, they have preferred targets, but you can, they're valuable against everything. The Dragon Slaying Sword requires you to go specifically after monsters. What if your opponent only has 1 monster and you can't get in combat with him? What if he takes no monsters? So yeah, I think this one is not one that I would choose. As I've said, I think in previous videos, I generally prefer going for a more all-comers style of list building, rather than tailored. If I know my opponent's bringing loads of monsters, I don't really like tailoring to that. I prefer to assume that tomorrow I might fight somebody who's got no monsters, and therefore I've got one list that does both. And you're going to have to do that if you're going into a competitive scenario as well. So Dragon Slaying Sword, not something that I particularly like, and it's not the cheapest weapon out there either. Headsman's Axe. Right, so strength +1, AP -1. It's got killing blow. Yes, it requires 2 hands, but it, killing blow is nice, right? That's the thing. You're not taking a shield. Requires 2 hands. Is okay. It's not a great weapon. So you're not striking last. It doesn't have a strike last rule. So the killing blow is always nice. That extra strength, extra AP. That's all pretty good. So Headsman's Axe I quite like. Say killing blow always has value, and what killing blow really does is it can really deter enemy characters. You might have an uber enemy character that maybe want to take you to a duel, but any character that goes up against someone with killing blow is taking a risk that they get caught out and get unlucky with it. So Headsman's Axe, quite a nice weapon, and +1 strength and that -1 AP does help. Right, Spell Eater Axe. So Strength as a user, AP -1, specials, magical attacks, magic resistance -2. Yeah, again, I find this one quite situational because it relies upon an enemy caster wanting to cast spells at you. The first time he might do that because he doesn't know you've got this weapon, and then after that he's not going to do it again. So, again, you're paying points for it. And for me, when I'm paying points for something, I'm looking at how often am I going to get to use those points in the battle. And with this one, I kind of think, I'm not sure how much I'm really going to gain from this one or how many times I'm going to get to use it. So I think maybe once. Whereas you look at the one above, the Headsman's Axe, well, I can use that and get the benefit from its rules and its buffs every time he's in combat, which could be 2, 3, 4 times in a game. So Speller Eater Axe, again, not a huge fan of. Giant Blade, so strength +1, it comes with that basic AP of 0, so armor bane 2, magic attacks, multiple wounds 2. So Giant Blade I really like, but I think to really make this one work, you need to put it on a character that already has a lot of base attacks or has ways of getting extra attacks to trigger the armor bane 2. Because the AP of 0 is going to be a problem. Multiple wounds 2, again, means you're going after characters, monsters, monstrous infantry, anything with more than 1 wound to get the benefit from it. So, kind of like a cheap version of the Ogre Blade, and you can see the name is there. Though, for me, the Ogre Blade's really expensive. So the Giant Blade is a bit of a nice compromise in that. But, you really want to be looking at characters that have got plenty of attacks or ways of getting extra attacks to really get the most out of that armor bane. But the multiple wounds 2 is nice. Sword of Swiftness. This is basically, again, a strikes. So this weapon is all about strikes first. So you get no bonus to strength or AP. So again, you really want this on, ideally, this actually works quite well on quite a tough character, like a high-end character, Lord level. Lots of attacks, already have good strength. Your issues your AP, but the strike first is all around, again, getting it against enemy units so they don't get to attack back. So again, I would see this on a high-end character that would be on foot in a unit. It's not an expensive magic item. And you're using his native strength to do what he can to remove enemy models. But going up against heavy infantry with no AP is going to be a problem. And I think he would be at risk in duels as well. This, in terms of this weapon versus some of the other weapons we've seen above. Okay, next up is the Berserker Blade. So you get +1 strength and you get frenzy. This is okay. I mean, frenzy is one of these rules that can either aid you or hinder you. Do you have it at the right? Are you going to be is it going to force you into doing something at the wrong time, or are you going to get the extra benefits at the right time? So I'm not a huge fan of having frenzy personally, so unless I can trigger it, like if it was like a magic effect or something where I can trigger it for a turn, give the unit frenzy when I want it, and then it go away. So having frenzy on a character for getting +1 strength, I think there's better things out there. And with that in mind, I look below and go, oh, look, Sword of Might, +1 strength, -1 AP. Right, just a basic, flat out +1, -1. And without having to worry about frenzy. So I actually prefer the Sword of Might. I think the Sword of Might is one of the best choices here. It's cheap. Yes, it doesn't have any amazing special rules, but it's very solid in what you've got. You're not reliant on armor bane and rolling 6s to wound or anything like that. It's just that flat out, straightforward increase. You know what you've got. You know what you've got in terms of that AP and that strength, and you can put that on a character, any character, and then look at it and go, right, this character is going to be best at going after these units. And he's always going to be like that. Whereas when you're relying on Armorbane, you are going, oh, well, I should go against heavy units, but he might fluff it all and not get the benefit from it. So Sword of Might I really like. I think in terms of value for points, this is a good one. Okay, you got Biting Blade. So Biting Blade's actually interesting because it just comes with that native AP -2. Again, works quite well on a character that already has pretty decent strength. And you're just potentially with Armorbane getting that extra one. But AP -2, pretty nice. You know, that's pretty good. There's not that much high AP stuff in the game overall. So Biting Blade, actually, I actually really quite like that. But again, thinking about putting that on a character that already has good strength, so that you get the wounds to make the benefit of the AP. Putting it on a strength 3 character is not great, but if there's a way to boost strength, whether it's through spells or other means, the Biting Blade would suddenly shoot up and be really, really nice. So if you've got other means of boosting strength, Biting Blade would be a really interesting combo. Sword of Striking, again, pretty basic there. So you know, you're really only gaining magical attacks. That, you know, that just magical attacks on its own. I mean, really, that is looking at, you know, characters, for example, that have ethereal and stuff like that. So it's okay. Nothing amazing. To be honest, I wouldn't pay the points for it. I'd rather have something like the Biting Blade or Sword of Might if you're going cheap. I think paying points just to get magical attacks, again, how often is that really going to make a difference? I mean, there are some cases where there are, you know, items or special rules where, you know, you get a save, you get a ward save against non-magical attacks. But, you know, again, how often is that going to be a scenario for the points you're paying? I think there's better value for points elsewhere. And then finally in the magic weapons section, we're looking at the Burning Blade. So this is basically paying points to gain flaming attacks. And again, you know, and magical attacks, you've got to be in a situation where you gain you get a benefit from it. I think, as I said, you know, I'm looking at how often am I going to get the benefit of the rules that I'm paying these points for. And I think for Burning Blade and the previous one, I just don't see it. Yes, they're cheap. Maybe in certain scenarios, but again, it really feels like you would be tailoring for a list at that point. You're tailoring for your enemy. So I think, yes, they're cheap, but I think paying points just to gain flaming attacks or magic attacks, I think there's better ways to spend points, and not something I would be looking at choosing for my armies. And there we go, ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the end of the magic weapons. We've got a few more categories to go, so keep an eye out for those over the next few days, and then we'll be moving on to our first faction focus, which will be the Dwarven Mountain Holds. But I hope you enjoyed this video as we take a look at the magic weapons. If you did, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, give it a thumbs down. Let me know why in the comments down below. If you want to continue seeing content, then please hit that subscribe button. It is free for you to do. It does take a few seconds for you to do, but it's such a really important and massive deal for me. So I really do appreciate it, and I do thank to all of those who have already subscribed and are returning viewers. You've been watching The Ghost Owl, and I'll see you all very, very soon.